Hello everyone, I'm at Liverpool playing at the British Chess Championship. It started today, although the British Chess Festival kind of started a few days back, where with the juniors events, the rapid events were taking place 1 or 2 days before, but the main championship is starting from today, and I had a great first round. It was a solid game, and I'm excited to share it with you. So the game started off with e4. I was playing against Owen Crawford. I think he's from Liverpool. I'm not sure. I didn't ask him, but when I was checking his games and I was kind of doing my research, I kind of figured he's from he's a local. So e4, d6. I wanted to play d6 to get a complicated game from the start. So d4, knight f6, and here the Philidor defense. Knight bd7, bishop c4, bishop e7, pretty standard till now. Castles, a4, c6, rook e1, h6, and here b3. This is something I didn't check before the game. h3 is more natural here, h3, rook e8, and then bishop e3. But b3 is perfect too, so white's idea is to kind of plant the bishop on the long diagonal, or even to a3, as what happened in the game. So b3, rook e8. I went for the natural moves here. Oops, and my opponent played bishop f1. I wasn't sure exactly what he wanted to do with bishop f1. Well, it is a useful move because at some point, for instance, let's say bishop b2, I might have ideas. Pardon me, e takes d4, and let's say knight takes d4. I have knight e5 with a tempo, though it's not that critical here. I think white is still slightly better. So he wanted to avoid that, and he played bishop f1. Get back to moves. Yes, bishop f1. And since this was a waiting move, I thought rather than playing a natural bishop f8, which was kind of my intention if he had played bishop b2. I thought after bishop f1 here, and what happened in the game, I played a5, preventing a5 from white. It's because after bishop f8, a5, it's a bit annoying to allow this, so that's why I kind of thought when I had a chance, let's prevent it. a5, bishop a3, and here I had two choices. Should I play in the center with e takes d4, and after knight takes d4, maybe even bishop f8 followed by knight c5, or I could take a very solid sluggish approach. I went for the sluggish approach because I wasn't sure exactly how with the fianchetto queenside bishop, how would it affect my d6 pawn. So I wanted to be very safe, so I went with queen c7. And when I make a move like queen c7, I have less intentions to play on the e4 pawn at the moment, because I think now the d6 pawn is going to be under threat. It's queen d2. I went knight f8. This is my point, playing queen c7. I'm protecting the e5 pawn. h3, and this is a very important move by white. I was hoping my opponent wouldn't play this, but he played it correctly, because if he had played in an autopilot mode, then bishop g4, and I think black is already taking over the game. Still, it's a slight edge, but yeah, this is an opening success for black. He played h3, and I went knight g6, rook d1, and rook d8. I was trying to make bishop e6 work with the idea that after rook a d1, I can nicely play rook a d8. And if he plays d5 here, I just nicely tuck in everything and it looks good. However, what I realized during the game was d5 was quite powerful. And structures like these kind of resemble to a Nairov, but here it's kind of bad because there's some tactics with knight takes e5 and d6, and which are really annoying. So therefore I went with a knight g6, and here I played rook d8 because again I wanted to play something like bishop e6, but d5 was so strong. And also if I play something like bishop d7, I wasn't sure after d takes e5, d takes e5, maybe bishop takes d6, rook takes, queen takes. It's still equal, but I thought it was getting too equal. So I wanted to keep the queens on the board. So after queen c7, knight g6, queen c7, knight g6, rook d1, rook d8, so preventing bishop d6 idea, queen e3, and I went bishop e6, knight b1. This was very surprising, and you can see that before knight b1 he had 1 hour 1 minute, and he took 20 minutes to make this move. And this is a very strong move because the idea is white will play c4 and then play d5, or just play knight c3 and kind of increase the space advantage. And this was a very unpleasant move to face, knight b1. Although I was a bit worried of d5, because d5, again, I really didn't want to play c takes d5, but it seems like the engines are saying this is the way to go. But I was thinking I'll play bishop d7, and then kind of play this position and maybe slowly play knight h7, rook f8, rook d8, and play on the king side. So it's still slightly better for white at this point. Queen e3, bishop e6, knight b1. And here I felt it was enough to kind of play, in my territory and kind of now open the position up. So I went with d5. I think this was a risky decision, but it kind of paid off, since I think my opponent couldn't find the right continuation. So bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and here e takes d5, knight takes d5. And I should explain why d5 is very critical. If white is able to open the position without having any problems, then he equalizes, right? So the first thing is the e5 pawn is a bit weak. So whenever white plays d takes e5, my idea is to play knight takes e4, and my knight seems very strong on e4, and this e5 pawn seems a bit stuck in this position. So therefore, and whenever e takes d5 happens, knight takes d5 is black's intention. And the problem is, even though e5 is severely attacked, at this moment white can't do anything about it, and the next move I'll play e takes d4. But he played bishop takes e7, still the position doesn't change. And here at this point, I noticed a tactic for white. So white could have played knight takes e5, which is kind of counterintuitive, because you want to... So this knight on g6 is quite bad, so you don't want to trade it with knight takes e5, but the point is white outright wins a pawn. The way it happens is, after knight takes e5, white doesn't need to capture normally, because after this, again, black is fine here. But here, white has this intermezzo, e takes d5. What's the material count here? White has 2 pawns for black's piece. So black is a piece up, but 2 pawns down. But the problem is, now how do I defend my knight? So I was checking this variation, knight g4, h takes, knight takes, and after, let's say, queen g3, my intention was maybe c takes d4. And I was happy that this is not possible because of bishop takes, rook takes, and now bishop takes d1, and I'm in an exchange up, and probably white's queenside pawns are a bit weak now. But it seems that after c takes d5, the game is just not over, and he can just play c4, and there's a lot of pressure here. So this would have been very unpleasant. I was lucky that my opponent missed this. So after e takes d5, knight takes d5, e takes d4. And at this point I was kind of happy because the position stabilized. I got an open position now, even though it's still equalish, but it has a lot of resources left. Knight a3. I was a bit unsure about knight coming to a3, although it makes perfect sense to bring it to c4, and then it could attack these weaknesses. But I felt maybe bishop c4 would have been much nicer, just that you can chop off this bishop probably, but anything is possible honestly here. So after knight a3, after after knight a3, I went queen b4, knight takes e6, and here is starting to feel more comfortable about my position because I have a lot of control on the dark squares, and white's pieces, especially the bishop on f1, doesn't seem like it's working. So knight c4, knight c3, kind of planting my knight on c3, and I think this knight really played a critical role when it came to kind of getting a winning position. So rook d3, rook d5. Oh, yeah, this is probably an error. I kind of captured the rook. And here, so it went b5. And here I was thinking that, okay, I think this should be just clearly winning. But I was scared after b takes a4, b takes... Is this something I should be worrying about? Because I wasn't sure if there's any tactics happening here, but like bishop b3, e2... Well, engines are saying it's clearly better for me, but I couldn't believe it. It was that convincing. So probably, yeah, I should have went with a4, but I was kind of nervous that these three pieces are kind of looking at my king, and I really want my rook somehow to be here. So I went with knight f4, saying that, all right, if I trade white's main imbalance, in this position, the main imbalance is I have two knights, and, well, basically white has this light squared bishop. So if I can trade that off, maybe having this outer a pawn would have more significance. Went bishop f1, rook e8, g3, knight f2 check. And here, again, it's usually said that knight and queen is a very powerful combo, and I was kind of banking on that fact. So and at this point, we were on the 34th move. 6 moves till the time control. Once we reach 40 moves, we get additional 30 minutes. So yeah, this was the area where I was hoping that there was some mistake from my opponent, and he played queen a3, and initially I wasn't kind of seeing this as a bad move, because I thought it kind of makes sense to kind of attack this, because after b4, he can again go back to c1, and now I don't have much winning chances because I cannot create a pass pawn. However, I think what we both missed, but I eventually saw, was after queen e1 check, king g2, I have this really nice move, knight e4. And the point is that actually I was initially intending knight d1, but then queen c5, and white is probably better now. But after knight e4, now white needs to trade, and here I win. So I just repeating, trying to get to reach the time control, and now we reach a position where sadly white doesn't have any perpetual, because the moment he tries to do a perpetual, I have g6, and my queen is nicely guarding the f7 pawn. Now it was a textbook kind of endgame where black needs to prove he's show the technique to win. So the way I wanted to construct this position was to have a king on g7, put the queen on c3, and just push the pawn to b2, and then kind of think from there. So I slowly tried to do that for a few moves, reached the position where I was able, the king on g7 protects my f7 pawn, my queen on d4 along the long diagonal stops any checks. So I slowly moved this here, and this queen a2 was a nice place because it also protects the f7 pawn, and my opponent resigned here. It was a nice game. I think I had a slightly dubious opening and / early middle game, but I think I managed to play the later part of the middle game well, and though it was still equalish, but I think I kind of gained a slight edge. But yeah, my opponent played some nice moves as well, knight b1 and such moves I didn't even think about. Even queen e3 was very strong at some point. So it was a great game, and actually the pairings are up for the second round. I'm playing with Dishman Stephen. I played him before back in 2022, I believe, in the European Club Cup when I was playing for Gonzaga. He had some interesting memories from that game because I think we were leading 1 point, and we just needed a draw. And I was against Stephen. I had a rook versus a rook and bishop, which is known to be very nasty for the side who defends. But I was lucky enough to defend that endgame, and I drew the game, and I think we won the match. So I'm going to play him tomorrow, this time with the white pieces. Previously I played with him with the black pieces, I believe. So it's all good. And Tricia started with a draw with Robertson Pier. It's a lot of interesting games. I don't recall any upsets from this round. Well, there were many draws on the top boards, I think, but I don't particularly recall any upsets or any decisive wins by an underdog. So the tournament started now. It's a long tournament, still 8 more games to go. Yeah, wish me luck, guys, and keep following me. Thank you.